All right, the NFL has revealed the Pro Bowl rosters. They revealed it a week early, but that doesn't really matter for our Philadelphia Eagles since they are taking a week off. But I want to talk about the Pro Bowl selection of the Eagles, why I think that the guys who got it deserved it, and were there any snubs from this roster? Now, let's just take a look at the graphic of the guys who made it. Saquon Barkley, one of the more obvious choices, 2,000-yard rusher, had the best running back season of any running back in football, entered the history books. 9 other running backs, all basically Hall of Fame level talent, have had 2,000 rushing yards in a season. Saquon was a no doubt Hall of Famer, or excuse me, not Hall of Famer, Pro Bowler, because he had a Hall of Fame type-esque season. The guy was in the MVP conversation. He had to no doubt be a Pro Bowler. I like that Jalen Carter is on here. Jalen Carter and Cam Jurgens. Let's just talk about this for a second. The Philadelphia Eagles this past offseason lost 2 huge pieces, Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, 2 guys that held down their position on the line for a decade for this team. Hall of Fame caliber players, fantastic players, absolute leaders in the locker room as well. And Cam Jurgens and Jalen Carter were their replacements. And in their first season without those guys, they go to the Pro Bowl. That is outstanding, outstanding work from those players, the Eagles as an organization, Howie Roseman as a drafter, this team's coaching staff at developing talent. Shout out to Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, waiting until the perfect moment to when these guys were ready and they knew they were ready to leave. Like, this is an all-around fantastic celebration of the Philadelphia Eagles and what they have done. Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson, I think that these were also no-brainers. The Eagles, for my money, have the best offensive line in football, and I know we could have our debates of Detroit or some other team. Obviously, as an Eagles fan, we're a little bit biased here, and I see a lot of people saying that Jordan Mailata was snubbed because the offensive lineman, the only tackle that made it from Philly was Lane Johnson, and I do think there was a little bit of, you only get one tackle. And while I think that that sucks, I do think if that's the case, Lane Johnson was the right pick. It's so hard to quantify offensive linemen and who's the best statistically because stats don't always tell a full story there. A player lets up a sack, but it's because of another player running into him from behind or whatever it may be, or tripping. Like, some of it you have to watch the game. I think that that is the case with defensive backs and offensive line especially. It is 80% eye test for those positions and like 20% stats, where some other positions like wide receiver, you could pretty much look at a wide receiver's box score and see what their production was on a season fairly well. It's not ever great game to game, but in general speaking, Jordan Mailata was the highest graded offensive tackle in football this year per PFF. I get it. Some people like PFF, some people don't, but generally speaking, you got a high grade there. You're doing something right. So I could see where the Mailata snub is coming from, but I also get it if the NFL kind of had an underlying, you only get one tackle rule, but the Chiefs got 2 guards. So I get where we're mad about there. Zack Baun, no chance that he wasn't going to be the guy. Statistically speaking, he had the best linebacker season of any linebacker in the NFC. The guy has been absolutely outstanding for us this year. Coming into the season, us Eagles fans, a position of worry was linebacker. Baun and Nakobe Dean have exceeded expectations, and Zack Baun was more than deserving of this Pro Bowl vote. And I think in a year where Defensive Player of the Year is kind of up in the air, Zack Baun's having a similar season to Luke Kuechly's DPOY year. I get it that in the modern day NFL, it's all about the edge rusher, and TJ Watt got snubbed last year, so they're probably going to give him this award as a follow-up. But Zack Baun should be in those conversations. Now, when it comes to Eagles snubs, should Jalen Hurts have been a Pro Bowler? I'm going to say no. And I love Jalen, and I do think he's a franchise guy. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But Goff was way better statistically. Baker was way better statistically. And I think Darnold, Jaden, and Jalen could all be in a conversation. But in terms of valuability to their team, the Eagles were a run-first operation. Saquon Barkley was the head of this train. And offensively, he's the guy that led this team. So I get them not going in Jalen's direction, especially when statistically, just because he doesn't have to pass the ball as much, he just doesn't measure up to some of the other guys. A.J. Brown missed time, and that absolutely blows. But, I understand why he didn't get the Pro Bowl this year. Same with Smitty. Statistically, if they had both played, they're both 1,200, yard receivers, but they missed time, and it sucks. But this isn't a who is the best guy. This isn't Madden ratings. This isn't who would you take if you were starting a team. This is who had the best 2024-2025 season. So I do understand those snubs. We start talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson, who feels like he was snubbed, and you get two strong safeties, and it was Brian Branch and Budda Baker. Budda Baker led the entire NFC in tackles. So I understand why he's in there. You could make a case for CJ. 6 interceptions this year, had the pick 6. Obviously, he's the heart and soul of this team, and there's no denying what he means to us. But I'm also not too upset about where things kind of landed. I think of all the snubs, the biggest one was Jordan Mailata, truthfully. I understand not going CJ because when it comes to the eye test, CJ has blown a little bit of coverage and has lit up some touchdowns this year and isn't at the level of a player just from a pure talent perspective as Budda Baker and Brian Branch. I love CJ. He's a fantastic part of this team, but I understand why they didn't go there. The same reason that I understand why with Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. Like statistically, they weren't up to par. Jordan Mailata, to me, is the biggest snub for the Philadelphia Eagles. Overall, we have 6 Pro Bowlers. I love the selections we got. The guys that they got in there were must Pro Bowlers, in my opinion. So they didn't leave anybody out that was super egregious. I would have had, Mailata in there. But when you're battling with Penei Sewell and Tristan Wirfs and your own teammate Lane Johnson, I get it. Somebody had to be left out, and the NFL made the easy choice of one from each team. I would have left out Wirfs and put in Mailata and then had Penei Sewell as the other guy. But I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Jordan knows the kind of player he is. He's one of the better tackles in all of football. The Eagles have the best offensive line in the NFC and probably the NFL. You start debating Chiefs and Lions and Eagles. I get it, but give me our O-line all day. I think we should have had 4 Pro Bowl offensive linemen, which says an absolute lot. And at the end of the day, it's just the Pro Bowl. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it in general, but it is the news of the day. Appreciate the support from all of y'all. We were getting ready to roll. Fly, Eagles, fly. Cannot wait for the playoffs a week from this weekend. Will it be the Packers? Will it be the Commanders? Let me know your guesses in the comments section. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.